My name is Robert Guyton, and I'm standing here in the food forest that my family and I have created here on the south coast of the deep south, here at Riverton. We started off out here with broom and gorse, and very run-down property. As you can see behind me, there's not much broom and gorse left, and that does still exist out there, I'm not in the slightest bit worried about. So we could go now and have a look at what we've created. Already, we're only metres away from the house now, but already we're right in the midst of the forest, and it's a mixed, multi-layered permaculture style forest. But this is just an example of where we've opened up the canopy a bit in order to let in a lot more light, so that we can grow those food crops, which do require more than just a sort of a jungly effect. On the other hand, just at my feet here, is a cardoon, which is a perennial food plant that can exist on the edges of the forest without actually having to have a lot of cultivation around it. So there's always food in the ground, and there's always material for herb teas, such as the lemon balm right here. Without us having really to do anything about it, these plants self-seed, or they're perennials, and they come up year after year, always providing that understory structure which supports the health of the rest of the forest. Apples do particularly well down south here, and each of our apple trees, we've got about 90 here on this 2-acre property, each one's different, and each one was found on an old Southland station or farm or even backyard. We took scions from those trees, grafted them here ourselves, and we've planted those out almost as a living heritage orchard, which represents all of the different kinds of apples that were grown here in Southland.
And so this part of our project is nearly finished. I think we've got about probably 30 more trees to get, and then the collection's complete for Southland. And so they've all got names, you'll see them all, and we don't know the real names, all got names that match them to the family or the orchard they came from. But they were planted by early settlers, so they all have names.
We also have a lot of other fruit trees too, pears and plums. We have medlars, we have nectarines, we have apricots, a lot of things that you might not think would grow here in the deep south, but do, because this really, and you can feel it, well, I can feel it, the extra warmth that there is in this kind of warm habitat microclimate that we've created here. Once we were able to shield the wind, the southern winds off from this garden, everything responded by growing particularly well. We've even got figs, outdoor grapes, outdoor tomatoes, loquats, feijoas, lots of things growing here that you might not expect. And supporting all of this, I've got a lot of native trees, because when I first planted the property, my interest was mainly in natives. Well, I've also planted parabolas of wind shelter down through the property, so it's not just the shelter at the very periphery of the property, but there's also layers of shelter as we go down, so that with the wind, the wind can't just go over the outside shelter and then drop down onto our property. There's more and more layers of shelter. Yeah. Lots of attractive herbs too. This is sweet Sicily, which has a lot of purposes. It's used in cooking. It's very fragrant and very lovely, and these seeds here taste of aniseed and are very popular with children who visit. And you can see, even just looking on here, you know, with a wee spider here, everywhere you go there is life, and that's and there's a bee on this comfrey here. There's insects just everywhere, and that's the advantage of having such a well integrated and biodiverse property such as this, that there's just a home for everything in here, including us. Fennel, I know up in Nelson this is a pest plant, but down here it doesn't spread. It's just a very nice, you can use it in cooking, and the insects, when it flowers, they really love that as well. And it provides a lot of carbon, so it's one of those plants that you can just cut down and mulch into the soil. And that's how we manage the garden, is just by cutting and dropping. We don't have compost heaps. We don't worm farm, we just cut and drop. And so it's meant that the soil has become very deep and rich and filled with organic material, and it retains moisture very well. So it's just always healthy. Well, I believe it is. And you can see, looking around me, that the middle story between the herbs and the higher canopy or the fruit trees are the berries. And Southland is very strong in berries. Berries grow well here. They don't suffer from diseases. So we've got currants, black currants, red currants, white currants and gooseberries are the main fruiting understory. And again, I've chosen this spot here, which looks a little weedy, but it doesn't bother me at all because it's nice and sunny, and it's a spot that captures a lot of sun. So I cultivate it and grow beans and cabbage and a mixture of leguminous plants there. These are, what are they called? They're not onions, they are shallots. Shallots grow very well down south here. This part of the garden is far more, the canopy is more obvious here, but it doesn't stop things growing well, particularly fruit trees, and some fruit trees don't mind dappled shade at all, and so and particularly berry bushes such as this one here. You can see this one's netted, and it's a Worcester Berry, which is a combination of a gooseberry and a red currant by taste, and so it's a small currant that looks like a gooseberry, but it's a dark crimson colour. It's very, very sweet and very popular with the birds, and that's why, particularly blackbirds, so that's why I've got it covered in netting here. And you can see that I've had to net. This is a gooseberry here by comparison, but it still needs netting because they're so sweet that the birds will come and swallow those whole, no matter how big they are. And I've netted this red currant here as well. The red currants are just coming ripe now, and as they ripen, the blackbirds just come and hammer them, so we really do have to cover everything. This is a golden hornet crabapple, quite an old one now, but it's still producing a lot of fruit. A beautiful yellow crabapple, which this particular tree serves as a pollinator for the rest of the apple orchard, because I don't know if you know this, but the golden variety of apples have a very long flowering time, and it means that bees can visit that tree and then go out to other apples and do the pollinating. So it's a kind of a universal pollinator. Behind you is a pear tree. Here's another crabapple here. There's a nashi pear here, an old variety of plum here, and various apples and plums all the way through. There's a Himalayan strawberry tree there. There's all sorts, and so this is generally a more intense orchard area, and I'm going to walk up through this path here over towards our native area, so if that's of interest to you, follow me. Raspberries, just not self-seeded, but just spreading of their own accord right through the whole property. That's my loquat tree, which I hope one day will fruit. It's doing quite well. Here I've just cleared an area and sown that out in elecampane, which I'll show you shortly when we find a mature specimen. It's a very beautiful and very useful herb to have. So I collect seed off that, grow that seed in the tunnel house, and then in this mid to late spring put them out to grow on. They're a perennial. You can see the dogwoods and the flowers through there. And I have hazels right throughout the properties. A hazel is a very good tree for down south here. Very reliable, and I'm coppicing some of them. Other apple varieties here. We name all our apples, and we have the name tags, copper name tags, hanging from every tree, but I can never find them because I'm colourblind. We've sown corn in this area here. See, it's a nice open area where the sun can come in, even though it's got fruit trees. That's an apricot tree, 2 apricot trees right there. That's a lovely George Wilson plum to the right there. It's covered in fruit. And if you want to come through to this side here, where we've got a spring and a stream, which are a bonus for us really when we bought the land. And what we've done is we've kept that as our zone 4 and 5. This area here, it's all native trees beyond this edge here, and as it goes further down it becomes wilder and wilder until finally it's just impenetrable, and no one goes into the bottom part of the native stand there, so I guess it would qualify as completely wild. And this is a tree, an old British apple called a Keswick codlin, which I think is 4 centuries old, and only here because somebody has been grafting it all along down that line. Someone has thought this is a worthwhile tree. It originally was found as a sport or just as a seedling grown tree in a rubbish dump outside of Keswick Castle in Britain somewhere, and it's because it's such a good performer and such a lovely apple, people have thought all down the line that it was worthwhile keeping it going. And so here it is, and it's a lovely apple. It's an early apple. It's a cooker and an eater. It's a very light apple in your hand, and it has a distinctive seam that runs down the length of each of the apples. It's the kind of apple you have to take straight off the tree and eat because it doesn't store well. But on the other hand, we've got apples that represent every part of the season, from early to late, and good storers and poor storers, cookers, eaters, everything you could imagine, including some very nice crab apples that we've developed ourselves.